Hey everybody, welcome to Crafty Beach. This is Julie, and I've got a great project for you today. But first, if you haven't hit subscribe, if you could do that and give me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. Okay, today we're going to do patriotic dupes from Kirkland's. First, we're going to do this Let Freedom Ring sign from Kirkland's. It's $37, available on their website. And I'm going to try to duplicate it. So here I am in Cricut and Design Space. And basically I want to make the image as close to theirs as I can and print it out on vinyl and then paint over the whole thing. So basically it's kind of like a reverse stenciling method. So the stars, shapes just come on Cricut Design Space. So that's what I did, is made the stars, duplicated them, aligned them, and then I am looking for a font here that's kind of close to the Freedom Cursive that they use. And I find one I kind of like, and you can decrease the spacing to kern them, but sometimes you have to ungroup the letters to get them to touch. And with cursive letters, that's really important. So that's what I did there. And then I found a font for Let and Ring that looked kind of similar. And I'm just using the align tools to get everything lined up. And then the bottom of their sign had stripes. So I just made a rectangle, and I'm just duplicating that and running that along the bottom. And I tried to align it, but it was not cooperating. I'm like, okay, fine. We'll just center those together, and we'll be good. And then I group those all together. And then I go to make it, but I forgot to weld the whole thing. So I went back and welded it, and I am going to print it out on this Dollar Tree Cricut vinyl. It's the cheapest vinyl I have, so it's perfect for this. And green is probably a color that I won't use a lot, and so perfect, right? Then I'm going to use that Handmade Modern magnetic canvas frame that you see there that I got recently at Target on clearance from their craft department. I got it on clearance for $2. I got 2 of them. If I would have had any idea how cool they were, I probably would have got more. So I just put my green Dollar Tree vinyl down, and I am going to hit go on my Cricut Explorer 2. And while that's cutting, I can go ahead and open this. Now, you can totally recreate this. You can totally make your own. This is just easy. I love the kit part of it. Basically, they're long pieces of wood with magnets on the inside that's going to hold my canvas in place. So you could do the same thing with pieces of wood, lining it with magnets, or, you could attach it some other way, but this makes it where I can change the canvas out. So it comes with a roll of canvas, and so I'm just going to leave the white, and I am going to put the stickers, the decals on there, paint over it, and that will leave the white underneath the stickers. You know what I'm saying. Okay, so I'm just putting some protection down because I'm going to be painting here. And this is when I realize I don't have enough blue paint. And most of the sign is blue. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, well, we'll figure something out. Okay, so the Cricut is done cutting, and look how beautifully this Dollar Tree vinyl weeded. Do you see that? That's some good weeding for Dollar Tree vinyl. I'm very impressed with it. I am definitely going to have to stockpile some of this for sure. And then I'm using this transfer paper. I buy it on Amazon, and it's like a papery transfer paper. It's not super sticky. And I think it's going to work perfectly for this. So I just rip some off, and I'm just smoothing that over my cut vinyl. Now, something weird did happen here. It's stuck on my cutting mat. Do you see that? I've never had that happen before. It didn't screw anything up though, so we're okay. Everything's still good. Just smoothing that back out, and that one piece of vinyl is still on there where it got stuck, and pulling that off, and look how easy that transferred over. Another one there for Dollar Tree vinyl. And so here I'm just kind of measuring. I only get one chance to stick this down. I don't want it to be off-centered, and that is what I'm gonna do. And just smooth that out and see if it's good and stuck, and it is. And I'm gonna pull off that transfer paper, want it to come up a little bit, and there we go. Okay, so the stripes on theirs on the bottom go all the way to the sides, and it was a couple inches wider than my Cricut cutting mat, which was 12 inches. There I knocked everything over. And so I'm going to go back in and cut out a few of those stripes that was cut out between the other ones to put those on the sides. And that'll clear up the gap in the stripes. So you can't see, but I put one on the left and then I'm putting one on the right. And this is a pretty good setup for what that sign looked like. Theirs was blue on the top and then red and white stripes at the bottom. So I'm just going to use this painter's tape from the Dollar Tree, of course, and go ahead and put that over the bottom where the stripes will be. And this is my problem solving right here. I'm going to use my Agave is the color, chalk paint from Waverly from Walmart. And I think I can get away with this because I have a beach theme house. So I think that this lighter color of blue will actually look good with my beachy coastal farmhouse is what I call it. And so I'm just problem solving because there was no way I was going to go out and it was late. There was no way I was going to go out and get more paint. So I actually love how this turned out. So I just did one good coat of the chalk paint. And you know chalk paint covers so well. And the canvas is so receptive to paint that is really all it needed. And you can see my brush marks, so I try to keep it all in one direction. But that makes it look very coastal and very farmhouse. And I love how that turned out. So basically now you just weed all the vinyl off. And it's just leaving the white canvas underneath. And we have it, let freedom ring. So then I'm pulling the painter's tape off the bottom. I probably should have attached that vinyl separately. I did want to pull it up a little bit. But then I realized that when I taped it, you see there's like a white line between the vinyl and the next sign. So here I am being extra and trying to move them all up. Probably wasn't necessary. But then the bottom, it's going to leave the white stripes where the green vinyl is, and then I am using this crimson is the color chalk paint by Waverly that I got at Walmart. I was prepared. I bought red paint for 4th of July and Memorial Day, but I forgot blue. I don't know what I was thinking. And so I just paint that on and give that a good dry. And again, just like the top, the chalk paint works really good, really great coverage. So I'm going to pull off my painter's tape after giving it a quick dry. And then just like the top, I'm just going to weed off the vinyl that I used as a stencil. And we have let freedom ring. Now it's a little longer than I needed, so I'm just trimming off the canvas. And I like distressed. So I'm just going in with some white chalk paint and just giving it a little distressing to make it how I like. And if you don't want to distress it, you don't distress it. Just whatever your style is. This definitely gave it a lot of character. And so here are my frames. So basically, there are 4 individual pieces of wood. They're all the same with magnets on one side, but one has a string. And that string was really on there. I didn't really want to take it off, so I left it on there. And I am just going over with Waverly Antique Wax. I get this at Walmart as well, and it's basically like a stain, but it's super fast. It dries fast. You don't have to, it's not messy like stains. I absolutely love it, and it gives so much character to the wood. And this is going to be closer to the way that their frame was on the original versus the natural. So I try to keep that string out of it, but of course I can't. And so I do end up getting some on there, and then I just kind of like just go with it and make it like it was on purpose. And actually it looks fine. I thought if it didn't, I could always just replace it with twine, but it turned out good. So it dries super fast. I just gave it a good go over with my heat gun, and we are ready to put this guy together. Let freedom ring. So basically it just snaps in with the magnet. I'm just trying to get it on there straight. It was a little crooked, so I'm just going to give it a little trim on one side and then put the magnet on. And right here, see the little pink on the stripes there? I think when I distressed the red stripes, I don't think it was completely dry. So I'm just going over with some white chalk paint here to try to get rid of the pink. I like the distress, but I don't really want to see any pink. So then I'm going over it with just baby wipes here to try to clear up my red stripes. And crisis averted. So I'm going to give that a good dry so I don't mess it up again. And then snap the bottom on. And trim it so it fits just right. And it is done. You'll be able to see the final product here at the end of the video. Okay, the next one is these Patriotic block stars from Kirkland's. They're $20 on their website. I'm going to use these block stars that I got at Dollar Tree. So they were $1 a piece. Their project was $20 for 2 stars, and mine is going to be $2. So wonderful deal. I'm just using the spackle from the Dollar Tree to fill in the holes. I'm wondering if I would have used like wood fill, if it would have turned out a little better. I don't know. But that's what I had handy, so I'm just filling in that little hole because I don't want these stars to hang. I want them to sit just like their Patriotic block stars. And the process that I'm going to use to make this today is sublimation. Sublimations, you have to use a special printer and special ink, and it sublimates the ink into the whatever you're doing. This time it's going to be the wood, and I'm not going to treat these at all. I'm just going to go straight on raw wood. Now, if you don't have a sublimation printer, that's fine. You can totally do this. I just thought this might be a fun technique to use sublimation on. And so I'm just giving them a quick sand. They were all a little rough. And then here I'm going to take my heat tape that's used for sublimation, and I'm going to go around and tape off the edges. The reason why I'm doing this is because the designs I printed out a little larger on squares, and I've noticed that on wood when you sublimate that colors can go around on the sides. Now on the original Patriotic block stars from Kirkland's, they had the raw wood sides, and so I wanted to do the same, but I don't want that bleeding to occur. So here is my first pattern. It's close to the original. It's not the same. It's like drawings of the white stars, but it's the big stars and the little stars mixed in a random pattern, and I put that together on Canva and printed that out. And then I'm just going to put my sublimation paper on there, and I'm going to go in with my Cricut Easy Press at 400 degrees for 1 minute. And while that's sublimating, I'm just going ahead and getting a head start on my second wood block. And I don't know if it's because I kind of had it wet with the baby wipe. I had a little color variation in that. I don't know if you can see that, but there was a little color variation in that. It works, but it turned out pretty good. So the second one, I'm going to go in and do the same thing. I'm going to use the heat tape. The reason I'm using the heat tape is because I think it's the only thing that's going to hold up to the heat from sublimation. It's really super hot. So just getting that one ready. And for this one, I just took the American flag and I just cropped out the stripes because that's all I wanted. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put it on there going sideways like the original. And this time I'm going to use a cover sheet. So that's just a piece of copy paper, 400 for 1 minute again, and maybe I won't have any problems like I did on the first one with the color variation. Can you see that? There's just a little bit, it could be from the wood, I don't know. So 400 for 1 minute, and this one turned out like almost perfect. It's a little bit off center, but I love it. So there we go, $2 versus $20 at Kirkland's. We have our patriotic black stars. And then I'm going to go in and seal this with just some spray matte acrylic. I don't know if it's really necessary. I do know that when I sublimate on canvases, it brings the colors out a little more. I think it did make the colors pop a little bit more, and it'll probably make it more durable. So I just sprayed that on, and I am giving it a dry. I was thinking too, it could maybe mask the coloring variation on the blue star. And I don't know. It turned out okay. I like them. I'm definitely going to use them for sure. So I'm really going over that, giving that one a really good dry. And there we go. All done. Okay. Next is this America the Beautiful wood wall hanging. And it's $25 on Kirkland's website. And I'm going to recreate that with this wood round that I got at Target in their craft department. They are $5. And it is a 12-inch wood round. And I'm just going over that with ivory chalk paint by Waverly that I got at Walmart. I really prefer the ivory compared to the white. I have a lot of ivory in my house, and so I think it totally looks a little nicer than the stark white. So I use a lot of it. Like, this is the end of this bottle. I had to go buy more. So I just gave it one good coat, and then I am going around the sides and giving it a good paint job. Now, this is a 12-inch wood ring, and so when I print out my stencil, I did 12 inches, but I didn't take into account that fancy trim around the edges. So it is a little big, but I make it work. So the one coat of the chalk paint is on, and then I give it a good dry with my heat gun. And then I'm just going to go over it with a thin second coat. I really want coverage. I really want it to be white. I don't want any of the wood to show through on this one. And then a quick around the edge. And I'm just trying to get maximum coverage. I really want this sign to pop. And I designed the design for this actually on my iPad when I was at the car dealership waiting for my oil change. And so I don't have the footage of that, but I did write down what fonts I used. And how I did that was I went to dafont.com and I typed in the phrases that were on the sign, and then I went through and tried to find a font that looked like theirs to kind of do a copycat, and I think I got pretty close. So that is good and painted, and it's time to make our stencil. I don't want to use vinyl on this. I want it to be a hand-painted sign. I think it looks way classier, and I just love a good hand-painted wood round. They're great. So I'm going to use this Cricut stencil vinyl. You don't have to use the stencil vinyl, but I had it, so why not? And it's a good stencil. It really is. I really like this stuff. It's not super sticky, so it's not going to damage my paint job. And it's got the grid, makes things easy to line up. So I'm just rolling that out and cutting how much I need. And I am going to have my Cricut cut out the stencil for us to make the sign. And so what it's going to say is America the Beautiful. So here I am just weeding out. It's kind of the reverse of what I did on that last stencil, because I'm actually just making a stencil where I'm going to, make America the Beautiful black, and then I'm going to have colored stars on there. The cursive weed's so cool when it all comes out one piece like that. And so America the Beautiful with 2 stars on the side. America and Beautiful, the font from DaFont.com is just one. And that's just one word. Just one word. And the was Amatamora was the font that I used for those. I went and looked those up for you because I think it's a really close match to what Kirkland's used. Now here, I don't know what I was thinking. I thought I could just peel it off as a sticker and stick it on there. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I am like totally losing like the like little parts inside the letters. I'm like, yeah, those are important. Maybe I shouldn't do it like this. Okay, yeah. So let me fix my damage here. I don't know what I was thinking. It's been a while since I've made a stencil, obviously. And I'm like, okay, I do need to use transfer paper because I want to get as much of that stencil as I can on there in one piece. So again, I'm just using this paper, transfer paper that I get on Amazon, and I will post a link below. It's fantastic. And just smoothing that on with my little Cricut scraper, and still some of the letters, the parts did not come off. I don't know if I didn't scrape it down good enough. So I'm just basically taking that off, flipping them and lining them up and putting them back on there, and trying to get it as close as possible to where it should be on those 3 pieces. Okay, now the stencil is ready. So here is my painted wood round, and then I'm just going to kind of cut off the sides so I can kind of get this aligned better so I can see what I'm doing. And this is where I noticed that it was a little too big. And so my America, like the A on the right and the L on the right, both get cut off a tiny bit, but then I'm like, oh, that's okay, I just won't paint there. And it actually turned out just fine, and it's super huge and effective, the statement. And so I'm just peeling off the stencil transfer paper and making sure that it's really good and attached. I'm going through with my Cricut scraper and trying to get it down because I don't want any bleeding. That's the worst part about hand painting sides, is when you get bleeding. So this is my strategy. I'm like, Mod Podge, no, I don't want glossy. I know I got matte in here somewhere. And so I'm going to use Mod Podge matte. And I heard that if you do the stencil first with Mod Podge, you get less bleeding, like it seals it. And for some reason, when I went to pour the Mod Podge out, I poured out tons. So I had this paper towel because I was trying to clean up my mess. And then I'm just like, oh, heck, I'm not going to even use a paintbrush. I'm just going to use the paper towel. So I'm just using the paper towel, and I am Mod Podging all over the stencil, trying to make sure that it is good and down. And this is the first time I've used Mod Podge with a stencil, and I would say it was a success. I think I would definitely do it again. So the edges, like where the A's are, like they're cut off a little bit. So I'm trying to make sure I really get that good and down. Trying to pour my Mod Podge back into my container. It was thinner than I was used to, and it just kind of went everywhere. Okay, so I'm giving it a dry. I want to get that Mod Podge dry so that I can start painting the sign. And I'm going to use, this is just black acrylic paint, and I'm using one of those little stencil daubers that you get at the Dollar Tree. And I am just daubing that on. Like, I don't want it to be heavy. I don't want to brush it on. I don't want it to go underneath the stencil. And so I am just going across and trying to get America, trying to get the best coverage that I can, and trying not to go off my stencil there. And then I go over here on the side, and I do go off the stencil, and I'm like, I knew better. Why didn't I use painter's tape on the side of here? So I'm just using a baby wipe and trying to get that black paint off the side. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, do it right, Julie. So I'm going in and using that painter's tape from the Dollar Tree and just taping around my stencils just for a safeguard so that does not happen again. And I'm just being really careful there that I don't finish that letter that's cut off. And you can't tell. I was hoping that would be the case. So I'm going to go over the word the with black. Their sign was white with America the Beautiful was in black. And then they had blue and red stars on the side. And so that's what I'm trying to recreate here. I think I did a really good job of copying their font. It's very similar. And just daubing that all over. I kind of used a little bit more paint than I would like there on the bottom, but it worked. And then I could see some white speckling coming through some of the letters, the black letters. So I was trying to get maximum coverage. So I'm just going over with a second coat with my little dauber and getting that good and covered. If you want to add more paint, this is the time to do it, not after you take the stencil off, for sure. So I'm going to do the stars. This is called Candy Apple. It is just acrylic paint from Target, and it's just a bright red. And I don't have any more daubers, so I'm just going to use small foam brushes and just kind of daub it on. So you can totally do that as well. And theirs had 2 red stars on the outside, so I'm doing the same. And then I'm going to make the other stars 2 blue. This is a tiny amount of blue paint that I had left. And do the same thing with a little foam brush and daub that on. Kind of looks a hot mess right now, doesn't it? And I see some white coming through, so I'm kind of going in with like even a third coat because I really want that black to be clear and bold, and I don't want it to look rustic. This one I actually want it to look really crisp. The original was really crisp, and so that is what I'm going for. And I'm giving it a good dry with my heat gun. And so this sign at Kirkland's is $25, and I'm using a $5 wood round, plus just the cost of the vinyl and paint and the bow. I got the bow that I'm going to use at Dollar General for $2.50. So definitely a good bargain on this one as well. And I've given it a good dry. And then I think I'm ready to take the painter's tape off. Are you ready for the big reveal? I was a little nervous. This part's either really satisfying or really disappointing. And so far, I'm like very satisfied. I only had a tiny bit of bleeding on that L. Maybe because I was trying to be really careful. The L over on the side that was cut off. And kind of a little bit on the cursive word, the. But I was able to weed out the rest of that vinyl and kind of touch it up with just my weeding tool from Cricut. And over there on the right, I did not get all the black paint off, so I'm just going to go and touch that up with a little ivory over on the side so you don't see that. And I did notice at the top there where on the corners, it was very hard to get the vinyl down. And so what bled was actually the Mod Podge, so I guess it did its job. So I'm going to give that a good dry, and you can kind of see where the Mod Podge did bleed. And the stars were coming up a little bit, almost a little bit like a sticker. So here I am touching it up and trying to make it beautiful. And then I decided to go over the whole thing with Mod Podge to seal it and to cover up the Mod Podge that bled through so that won't be as obvious. So I'm just going to go over the whole thing with a good coat of the Mod Podge. And this is a matte. I didn't really want a gloss to the sign. I wanted it to look very chalky with the chalk paint on there. And I think this helped. It helped seal the stars down and cover up any imperfections from the Mod Podge. And then I'm going to give it a good dry with my heat gun. If you don't have a heat gun, you can always use a blow dryer. It does the same thing. It may take a little bit longer. And here's the bow that I got at Dollar General. Their bow was a big poofy bow like this to hold the sign, and theirs was red. I couldn't really find a red one, and I didn't really want to make it. So I thought this would give me the same effect because it's the flag pattern with the stars and the stripes. So I am just taking the back and trying to get rid of that little foil wire that's holding it on like a bread tie, and looping that in case I want to hang it. I'm not going to hang it with that because this has really good hangers on the back of the wood sign and it's heavy. But I'm just going to give it the appearance that I'm hanging it with it. So I'm just going to glue the ribbon onto the back just with hot glue. And I actually, when I hang it, the bow, I just use like one of those command adhesive strips to hold that up because I didn't really want to put another hole in the wall to hold that up, but I'm just going to use a nail for the wood sign. So I lost some footage here, but basically all you missed is I hot glue the ribbon onto the back real quick. My battery died in my hot glue gun. This thing eats the batteries. I love it though. It must take a lot of energy to heat the glue that hot. So I am just waiting on that to heat up, which is probably why I end up losing the footage. But I absolutely love how the sign turned out. And I got the greatest compliment from my 16-year-old a while ago. I was like, oh, come here, look at the original. And so I showed him the original, and he was like, oh, I like yours better. And I'm like, oh, thanks. I love it. So there, I glued it on, and I'm just going to go in and glue it on a little better from the back, just kind of giving it the appearance that the bow is holding the sign up, even though I'm going to use that little sawtooth there to hang it on my wall. Okay, the final reveal time. This is the Let Freedom Ring sign at Kirkland's, $37 on their website. And here is my version on a $2 canvas I got at Target. And I love it. And $37 to $2 for my canvas plus the cost of paint. Wonderful. And I love that I chose a different color for the blue. It works with my house. Okay, Patriotic block stars available at Kirkland's, $20 for 2. And then I use these dollar ones from the Dollar Tree, so $2 is my cost. And then I use sublimation. You could always use tape, paint those stripes on, put down star stickers or make a star stencil and paint that blue. You don't have to use sublimation. And the America the Beautiful sign is $25 on their website at Kirkland's. And here's my version with the $5 wood round from Target plus the $2.50 bow from Dollar General. And I love how it turned out. It is just beautiful, my favorite. What do you think?